Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my review of Season 1 of Netflix's The Punisher series, starring Jon Bernthal as Frank Castle, the Punisher, again continuing his role from Daredevil. And let me say, this show has been a long time coming, because ever since Season 2 of Daredevil, people were clamoring for a Punisher spin-off series, and we got it. They definitely had the window there, but they wanted to see how fan response was for it during Season 2, I think. And people were just talking about the Punisher, to no end. And we got it, because of fan demand. Although, again, they probably had it in the cards anyway, but they wanted to make sure people, liked it as much as they had hoped, and they definitely did. So here we are, finally. It was released back November 17th. And I know there's people that probably, they binge watched it in a day or two or whatever. But I like to take my time with my Netflix shows. I just like to enjoy every little bit of it and don't want it to be gone too quick either. So, this was a great series. I think right up there with the very best of Daredevil, if not even better to me. Because the Punisher is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time. He's right up there with Batman and the Hulk for me. They're kind of my main three. And I loved the Thomas Jane movie. In a perfect world, I would have brought Thomas Jane back. But Jon Bernthal, he's one of my other favorite actors, of all time. Ever since The Walking Dead, he's been a very, very clear favorite of mine. So I was really happy when he got cast in the role for Daredevil Season 2. I think he was knocked out of the park in that season, and I'm so glad he got the chance to portray more of that in his own show. And Bernthal does so great here. Let me tell you, he really nails it. And now I see people complaining a little bit about this show because they are expecting basically a adaptation from the most violent Punisher story possible or something, and they mostly just want action, brutal kills and stuff like that. And we get excuse voice crack, and we get a good amount of memorable action sequences and violent fight scenes and stuff like that, which I think should satisfy you. But it turns out that that's all I wanted in all 13 episodes. But what I loved and appreciated, and I'm thankful that they went for, is a much more human story and real look at the character. Now the show may be too slow for some as well, again for the same action violence junkie people, I guess, fans. But to me, I love their approach to it. The pacing was fine. I didn't feel like it was too slow at any point. I got more and more engrossed in it as it went along, and it felt like a real character study of Frank Castle, which I really liked. It really felt like we were exploring his psyche in a real in-depth way, and it also had a real look at PTSD, not just with him but with others. And so I really admired that part of it as well. So it felt like a character study of Frank Castle, but in my opinion, it still delivered on those brutal fight scenes and action sequences for the Punisher, and it was enough to satisfy me for sure. And now, when we start the show, Frank Castle is kind of in a dirty laundry kind of mode, you could say. Dirty Laundry, of course, being the short Punisher film that Tom Jane did that Bernthal said he actually liked quite a bit. Because the Punisher, Frank, he's kind of in this middle ground right now. He's not really sure, what he is at this point, because at the beginning of the season, we see pretty much finishes the cartel. We see a great sniper shot from I don't know how many blocks away, and the guy right in the head as he's about to get a blowjob, which is great. Then he also strangles a guy in a bathroom stall. So he finishes that. So he's kind of searching for his place. He's still sort of just losing himself in his own mind, really. And he goes by the name Pete Castiglione, which is actually a comic book kind of thing, which is cool. Bernthal, he can really grow a beard. He ends up, I don't want to say having a friendship, but he ends up sort of taking a liking to this younger guy named Donnie, who's working on the construction site with him. And Frank is just bashing in the walls 24/7, and the other guys get pissed there because he's taking away jobs for them or work for them, so less money, less time and everything like that. But they turn out to be some pretty, shifty, sketchy people, and they get involved in crime and stuff, and they pull Donnie into it. The main guy's a dick, so he's asking for Frank to kick his ass at some point. When Donnie's identity is discovered by the people they try to rob, a worse, an actual legitimate, like a mob boss kind of group, they try to kill Donnie at the construction site, but Frank, of course, stops them, kills all of them instead. So I thought that was a good, first episode, and, a lot of people said, oh, come on, that was boring, it's too slow. I don't know. And I really, episode 2 is good as well. I'm not going to be able to go through every, bit of the story here, but I liked episode 3, though, especially because we see a real flashback to, his time in the military, which I like that they concentrated on as well. Great fight sequence we actually see the story that we heard about in Daredevil season 2, with him taking out how many men. We see Clancy Brown. It's good to see Clancy Brown again briefly, losing his arm like he talked about. Great sequence. I thought that was going to be my favorite fight sequence of the season, but they topped it a couple times, but this is still a really good one. And now, we also have the characters of Madani. Let me just get the cast list here. Yeah, played by Amber Rose Revah. She's a DHS agent. And she returns to New York because she has an investigation that she's looking into, ends up crossing paths with the castle. There's this footage of these masked men, basically interrogating and then, shooting a guy dead. Turns out to be someone connected to her. So she's digging into it. Then you have Ben Barnes as Billy Russo. He also served, with Frank in the recon, and now he runs a private military operation named Anvil. And I thought Ben Barnes did really well in this season. There's spoilers in this review, but I'll talk more about Billy Russo in a couple minutes here. If if the name sticks out to you, you probably know who he is. Then you have let's see. Yeah, I even liked Jason R. Moore as Curtis Howell. He was another friend and another guy that served with him at one point. I thought he was very good as well. I liked in the first episode Frank, sort of standing outside of one of the meetings he's holding for people who have served and, are going through psychological issues, readjusting and everything. I thought he was good as well. And you also have Deborah Ann Woll's Karen Page, who I thought was used, pretty appropriately throughout the season. There wasn't so much concentration on her that took away from Frank's story. It didn't really become her story, but I thought it intersected as well as it could, and she was used to a fair and fine extent. And I really liked her and Frank's bond and how that was shown more throughout the season, but they never go too far with it. They don't try to force, a whole love angle on it, which is fine. And then, of course, Evan Moss Bachrach as, I butchered his last name, I know that, as Micro, David Lieberman, who he's seen the name of on the disc at the end of Daredevil Season 2. And I was saying in my review of the first episode, 3 a.m., that I'm not sure if the supporting characters on the show are really going to match, like your Karens and, Foggies of the world and everything like that. And I liked Madani. She definitely got better as it went along, especially after... Okay, there's spoilers in this video, you're warned. Especially after Billy Russo ends up killing her partner, Stein. It gets a lot more real for her, and I thought they explored her mental state pretty well as well. So the character of Madani gets better, but I thought she was a little bit, weak in comparison to some others. Although, again, I liked her more at the end, so it changed a little, but... Micro, I thought, really made up for it. He is portrayed very well, and I like him and Frank's dynamic. Frank's very bitter, very straightforward, very hard-headed. Micro, he's a little bit, sort of wittier. He's a little more I don't know if I want to say energetic, but of course, he had to fake his own death because he is involved in this conspiracy as well. So he's had to leave his family in the dark. They all think he's dead. And Frank looks in on Frank looks in on him as Pete from time to time, and his wife. Micro's wife ends up having feelings for him, which is kind of funny, but they never really push that too far either. I just thought the show was great all around. Like I said, it felt like a real character study, surrounded by some really great, violent fight scenes. Like I said, I like the one in episode 3. Also, when they lure, who's ever coming after them to their, their base, and Frank just, picks them off, with that stealth, and it's really cool. And then when they do the Lewis thing, the actor who played Lewis, he's a younger guy who served, he's really kind of driven the wrong way by what he's been through, I suppose. He ends up being this, setting bombs and everything, trying to make this statement throughout the city. And yeah, you could argue that was a bit of a stereotype, I guess, or something. But I still thought it was a pretty real subject to tackle, just because we've unfortunately had incidents like that over the past few years. And then with him, there's, shootings and everything like that. So, I still really don't like the people that, think the Punisher should be taken off or something. I think it's a bit harsh to go that far with it, because the Punisher, I agree with the Punisher, and, the Punisher, he only kills people who deserve it, so I don't really see the issue that everyone had with the show getting released. But, I understand people being overly sensitive nowadays, but still, they gotta actually look at what they're talking about. Let's see. The actor who played Lewis, I thought did a fine job, although I wish there would have been more, I don't know, maybe just a little bit more confliction with him at the end, but, he had his place in the story, and I thought the episodes where Frank was trying to stop him was actually really well paced. It was pretty intense. I could go on and on about every little part of it. Let's see. And William Rawlins, he's the director of covert operations at the CIA, and he turns out to be the main one behind, having Frank killed, and, the whole family thing, and pretty much the whole mystery that Madani and the others are looking into as well. And I thought he was played well enough. He definitely wasn't the best villain of the season. It definitely goes to Billy Russo, which is understandable. So because Rollins wasn't as good of a villain, it didn't really harm it as much to me, because we had a character like Russo. But I still thought he was fine. He had his place in the show as well. And let me just say again how much I love the dynamic with Billy Russo and Frank, because they served together. You really felt like there was a history between them. You even see flashbacks with their, Billy Russo with Frank's family in the final episode and everything. And he's not just a straight up villain, bad guy either. There's there's a really brutal episode towards the end, where Frank's being held in a chair and is getting brutalized by Rollins over and over. And, there's a lot of blood. Bernthal, again, is just amazing. He knocks it out of the park. Bernthal's one of the most emotive actors I've ever seen. Just his emotional flickers, those subtle little bits, to his raw, rage, as Frank Castle that he lets out. Just very, very little things, too. He's definitely not a one-note actor. He has a really great range. Because there manages to be, brutal things like that and real in-depth emotional character beats. But at the same time, as him and Micro sort of grow closer, Frank does, get to care about him. And I'm not going to try and tell the story, but Micro, they end up getting drunk, and, Frank ends up laughing, and Micro is really kind of making a damn fool of himself. But it felt like a genuine, humorous scene, and I laughed my head off. So Bernthal can do all that, and he can still make me laugh like that, or make me feel like, him feeling that is genuine, But again, back to the Russo and Frank dynamic, it gets really personal, and Frank is being held. You can see that Billy's sort of conflicted about it going this far, even though he had knowledge of the hit in Frank's family. So he's still a bad guy, but he still has respect, for Frank and everything. So he ends up giving Frank the chance to actually kill Rollins, Agent Orange himself, which I thought was great. Of course, Russo still needs to get taken down, but I still like how that worked. And when Frank kills Rollins, it's really brutal. He gouges his eyes out, stabs him I don't know how many times. Might be a bit far for some, but I still hope people really enjoyed those scenes that were craving it from the first episode. If they had enough patience, they would have gotten it. And of course, at the end, we see in their final confrontation on the carousel, where Frank's family is killed. Also, I think the actress who plays Frank's wife in the flashbacks and the visions and stuff does well too. Russo's face ends up getting really, really marked up by Frank. Just destroying him against the glass and everything. So he's becoming Jigsaw. One of probably the Punisher's main individual villain, really. That doesn't really apply to other characters as much anyway. We see in a version of Jigsaw in Punisher Warzone. But I thought he was really over the top in that. I didn't really take him that seriously. But I feel like this is a really great, real version of Jigsaw, and I can't wait to see Billy Russo play that. Or I can't wait to see Ben Barnes play that in a hopeful second season. I mean, if Luke Cage and Iron Fist can get a second season, the Punisher should definitely get a second one. But I saw this very great origin for Jigsaw, and I think Ben Barnes is going to nail the even more psychologically disturbed version of him in the second season. And as far as Frank leaving him alive, I know he probably should have killed him, and people think he spared him just because they were friends. No, Frank knew it was long past that. He wanted him to, he wanted Billy to live with, his fucked up mug, yeah, but it's more psychologically deep than that, because as Billy explains earlier in the season, that's all he has, he doesn't have a family like Frank. He has his mother, but that's, fractured, from the state she's in. He had a terrible home life growing up. So his face and his sort of reputation is all he has, what he's built for himself, and now he can't really have that because of what he's done and how he looks now. So Frank wants him to sort of sulk in that a little bit if he ever wakes up, which we know he will. So I got it. But yeah, Frank probably should have still killed him, but, it is psychologically interesting too, I think. Yeah, so it's fun with how it ended. I already talked about the Agent Orange thing. And like I said, I liked how Karen Page was used. I really do love her and Frank's bond. Especially with what happened to Daredevil at the end of The Defenders. Karen doesn't really think Matt's alive anymore either. And, there's never a scene where they kiss. There's no sex scene or anything like that. The closest we get is them, we get their deep connection. They sort of put their heads together. And I think it's a really genuine scene. It's almost like in another life, maybe, but I think it's really true to the Punisher that Frank couldn't really, let himself go that far with Karen either, because he just can't. He even explains to Micro earlier in the season, his wife, Micro's wife ends up kissing Frank, or Pete. But not only does Frank not want to embrace that for Micro's sake, but, he just says all he thinks about is his wife, and he literally just can't want, anyone else's woman, he just really can't psychologically make himself do that, which I think makes a lot of sense because he has nightmares about his wife and his family every single night. And I guess that's one little critique I have, just to bring it up. I love the trailers for the show as well, the Metallica thing. I'm probably going to use one in my own video tribute at some point. But I almost felt like the flashes we got of Frank's family in the trailer was more effective than it actually was on the show, which is weird to say. But I think they could have used, even the Metallica beats, the slower, opening part of it. They could have used that, and it would have made the flashes of his family more effective. There was, just silence, and I thought it still worked fine. But I feel like they could have added just, a little bit more to make it even more impactful when you see it over and over again. Although Bernthal still does, save it because, like I said, he's one of the most emotive actors I've ever seen. But still, as far as the flashbacks and the the visions and stuff, I thought they could have just changed the editing a little bit and just made it even better. But like I said, Bernthal's performance, it really still sells it, as far as it has to. So yeah, the only issues was that, I guess. It really wasn't that big of a deal either. As far as other problems with the series, I can't really think of it. I don't know if I can put it over Daredevil, because Daredevil really really set or put up the bar for what these shows can be. But then again, I imagine if The Punisher came first, I'd be saying the same thing. I might have to go with The Punisher as my favorite Netflix series so far. Because it's The Punisher and he's one of my all-time favorite characters, so naturally maybe. But I just think this is really some of the very best Netflix has done with these shows, if not the best. If I had to rate The Punisher, I'm giving it easily at least an A, but maybe even an A+. I thought it was that damn good. The acting all around in Bernthal, he's an amazing actor. He deserves an Emmy for it, but I know they're not going to give it to him, but he would definitely deserve it. He deserved it in Daredevil Season 2. He deserves it now. I thought the story was even more engaging and compelling as I went along. Billy Russo, I think, was really well realized. Rollins is fine, but Madani got even better. Micro, I really loved his dynamic with Frank. Thought his Micro stuff with his family, too, is pretty touching. Karen Page was used appropriately. And there's plenty of just great, brutal action sequences. I talked about the Agent Orange, eye gouging death thing. The base action sequence as well. Also when when Frank has to escape when he goes after Lewis and everything, from the authorities and Anvil and everything. I thought was great as well. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I don't see how anyone could critique it that much, but it is what it is. I loved it. I can't wait for Season 2. They better give it a Season 2. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about The Punisher Season 1. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace. Oh, well, I guess one other little critique was, because we see the Punisher at the end, he sits in one of Curtis's meetings saying he's, scared. He doesn't know basically doesn't know what to do anymore. So maybe they showed us how to really solidify that Frank was just in Punisher mode right after this season, because in a way it does feel like another part to his origin that we've seen in Daredevil Season 2. So I get some people might be frustrated about that, but I'm fine with it. People are saying, oh no, I just gotta wait for him to snap again in Season 2 and go into Punisher mode. Maybe we should have seen more of the Skull in the season, but I think it's kind of nitpicking. It still fits with the really real version of the story of Frank Castle that they're telling here, so I think it'll still work. Anyway, see ya.